This American wood was nearly unbreakable. Why did we stop building with hickory? There was once an American wood that sounded almost unfair. Not the prettiest, not the easiest, but maybe the most brutally capable. Old USDA and Forest Service descriptions praised hickory in almost mythic terms. Some woods may beat it in one category or another, but no other commercial species matched hickory in the same combination of strength, toughness, hardness, and stiffness. Older government material even described it as roughly 30% stronger than white oak and about twice as shock-resistant. That sounds like the kind of wood that should have built America, but it didn't. American houses were framed mostly with softwoods like pine, fir, and spruce. Hickory became the wood of axe handles, hammer handles, ladder rungs, dowels, flooring, furniture, and parts that got hit, bent, stressed, and punished. So what happened? Did America ignore one of its greatest woods? Or does hickory reveal something much bigger, something uncomfortable, about how materials actually win? Because this story is not really about wood, it's about the difference between the strongest material and the most useful system. Hickory was never some obscure tree nobody cared about. It was deeply American. True hickories ranged across the eastern United States, and the Forest Service once called hickory an American wood. In 1909, hickory lumber production hit an all-time high of 334 million board feet. This was not niche wood, this was industrial America wood, and there was a reason for that. If you were making something that had to survive impact again and again, hickory was hard to beat. Axe handles, hammer handles, wheel spokes, wagon parts, ladder rungs, sports equipment, dowels, industrial components. That list explains almost the entire mystery. Hickory ruled wherever failure was sudden and violent, where one bad crack could mean injury, where shock mattered more than appearance, where toughness mattered more than convenience. And that sounds like the perfect building would, until you realize something important. A house does not live the way a tool handle does. When people say hickory was nearly unbreakable, they are usually reaching for a real property with a dramatic feel to it. Shock resistance. That does not just mean raw crushing strength. It does not just mean hardness. It means the wood can absorb repeated impact without failing catastrophically. That is why hickory became the classic wood for striking tool handles. It could flex, take punishment, keep going. But that is very different from saying it was literally impossible to break. Hickory was exceptional, not magical. And this is where people make the wrong assumption. They hear stronger and automatically think better for buildings. But buildings are not won by brute strength alone. A wall stud is not an axe handle. A floor joist is not a baseball bat. A framing system is not a toughness contest. A good housewood has to do much more than survive force. It has to be available in massive volume. It has to cut predictably, dry without too much drama, stay stable enough, fasten quickly, move efficiently through crews, fit standard dimensions, and work inside a construction economy built around speed, cost, and repetition. That is where hickory starts losing. And this is the part most people never hear. The same government sources that praise hickory's power also describe its problems. Hickory is dense, with a specific gravity around 0.64. It shrinks a lot during drying. That shrinkage can cause checking, warping, and other seasoning defects. It is difficult to machine, difficult to glue, difficult to pressure treat with preservatives. It holds nails well, but it also tends to split when nailed. That is almost a perfect anti-resume for mass house framing, because framing is repetitive, fast, cheap, labor-sensitive, mistake-sensitive, and deeply standardized. In USDA framing guidance, hickory was grouped among woods not commonly available for that purpose and hard to work and nail. Meanwhile, softwood lumber became the backbone of construction for framing, sheathing, scaffolding, forms, and countless other building components. And that is the real answer. America did not pass on hickory because it was weak. America passed on hickory because builders were not looking for the toughest board in the forest. They were looking for the fastest path to millions of walls. Softwoods fit that system better. They were lighter, more abundant in the construction supply chain, better suited to standardized dimension lumber, easier to work with at scale, and, in many comparisons, far cheaper than hardwood lumber. So the contest was never really hickory versus pine in a pure strength test. It was hickory versus an entire industrial method of building. And in that contest, the more cooperative wood wins. But that still leaves another question. If hickory was so strong, why not use it anyway in places where extra performance mattered? Because strength was only part of the story. Hickory also had limits people tend to ignore. It is not naturally durable in the way many viewers assume. Official guides describe it as not durable when exposed to conditions that favor decay. Its large pores can also leave dry hardwood lumber vulnerable to powder post beetles. That matters. Because the value of a building wood is not just what it does on day one. It is what it does after moisture, after insects, after job site storage, after imperfect treatment, after decades of real life. And hickory had another disadvantage there too. It is difficult to pressure treat. So now think about what that means. You have a wood that is hard to dry, hard to machine, hard to fasten, prone to splitting, not naturally durable in decay-prone conditions, and difficult to treat. Suddenly the strongest wood starts looking far less practical. And now, the legend begins to make sense. Hickory did not disappear because it failed. It disappeared from some uses because it was too specialized to waste on ordinary ones. That is a very different story. And one statistic from the 20th century makes that crystal clear. The Forest Service recorded that in 1940, around 80% of all hickory used in US manufacturing industries went into tool handles. By 1965, the major use had shifted to furniture, taking about 40%, while tool handles had dropped to about 8%. Flooring had also become an important use. That shift tells you something important. Hickory went where its strengths actually mattered. Not everywhere, not cheaply, not casually, strategically. If you had a wood that excelled at surviving shock, you saved it for the places where shock resistance could not be compromised. That is not a rejection story. It is a specialization story. Hickory became the wood of consequences, the wood for parts that could not casually fail, the wood for punishment, the wood for wear, the wood for force. And honestly, that may be even more interesting than if it had just become another common stud in another common wall, because it reveals something bigger about history. We like to imagine that materials rise to the top because they are simply the best. The strongest wins, the toughest wins, the superior material takes over. But that is not usually how the world works. The world usually chooses the material that fits the system around it, and systems have their own priorities: speed, labor, cost, availability, standardization, transport, ease of use, predictability. If a legendary material fights that system at every step, it usually loses. Not because it lacks greatness, because greatness is not the same thing as compatibility. That is the hidden truth inside the hickory story. Hickory was never the wrong wood. It was the wrong wood for cheap, fast, repeatable walls, and that distinction matters. Because even now, hardwoods have not completely vanished from structural thinking. Researchers have explored undervalued hardwoods in engineered wood products, including studies on hardwood cross-laminated timber and other modern mass timber possibilities. That does not mean America is about to return to hickory-framed suburbs, but it does suggest something fascinating. The future may not ignore difficult woods, it may simply use them differently. That is how modern engineering tends to work. It does not ask a material to become something it is not. It designs around what that material does best. So hickory's story may not be over at all. It may never become the everyday skeleton of suburban America. But in high-wear applications, engineered products, flooring, furniture, specialty parts, and places where punishment is part of the job, hickory still makes perfect sense. And maybe that is why this wood still fascinates people, because hickory feels like a contradiction. A wood so tough it became legend, and yet not the wood that built most American homes. But maybe that is not a contradiction after all. Maybe it is the rule. Sometimes the most extraordinary material in the room loses because the world is asking a different question than the one that material was born to answer. Hickory was built for impact. America's housing system was built for scale. And in the end, scale won. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe.